Okay. Oh, Caroline is now with us. Okay, so for those just joining in, I'm requesting you to turn off your videos and keep yourselves muted to save on the bandwidth. Okay. So we hope everyone has been able to join on this platform. And just to welcome to Caroline, I think you're now with us. And if you could put the link for donations in the chat, Caroline, so people know how to offer for today's session, that would be great. So today we're going to focus on actually, before we keep going, Caroline, I'm gonna make you co-host so that you can also help people enter the meeting as they're coming in. You might just need to press admit up top where you see participants. You can just click admit all, one by one admit. Thank you, Caroline. So, so today we're going to look at the fear of death as per someone's request. So one of the motivating factors I had for deciding to become a nun when I was 25 was I realized I'm a quarter of a century old, which was a lot to me at that time of my life. And I realized quite deeply that I didn't know how long I had to live. And it was a sense of urgency. Like, you know, there's no guarantee that I'll get to live, you know, any number of years. And so I wanted to do what was most important to me now, which was train my mind by entering the monastic community. I remember another sister who shared that one of the reasons she decided to come to the monastery was that she knew someone who died suddenly in a car crash, and that really woke her up also to how impermanent and ephemeral life is. And so she really wanted to go seriously on her spiritual path. Contemplating death can also help us to reorient in moments of reactivity in our daily life. So this is a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh Thai, who says, "To get out of your anger, you can close your eyes and visualize the other person in 300 years. This is as if you're in an argument with someone, you visualize you in 300 years and the other person in 300 years. And what will they become? We ask ourselves, ash, and you too. So as we contemplate, you know, the longevity, you know, zoom out, then the small thing that we're upset about or arguing about may be easier to let go of. But this is a very deep and important practice in the Buddhist tradition. In the practice of mindfulness is to turn our attention toward death and the reality, the real stages, the particularities of death, because it's a very human tendency to want to turn away from that and to think that our lives are permanent, that who we are is permanent, that we'll always get to be here, that our loved ones will get to be here. So in the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha advised practitioners to regularly contemplate death in every moment, to be aware that death, you know, was just around the corner, that we never know when we could die. And also in the Satipatthana Sutra, one of the main foundational texts in Buddhism, the 4 foundations of mindfulness is is another name of it. There's a part in that sutra that asks us to contemplate the 9 stages of a corpse that's decomposing. So, freshly, someone just died, a corpse that just died, and then how it starts to decay bit by bit. And in those days in India, corpses were thrown onto charnel grounds. They were left in areas where they would get eaten by birds and scavenging animals. So people could go out there and sit and observe a real corpse decomposing. And that's what many monks and nuns and lay practitioners did do. And it's even done today in countries like Thailand and Burma. So, this can seem very horrific or very depressing, but according to the Maranasati, the Awareness of Death Sutra, it's important to do this, not to make ourselves depressed, but in order to help give us a sense of urgency in our practice, to really turn our attention to what we can do in the precious time that we have available. We can awaken our minds. We can train our minds so that when we pass away, we will be as awake, as calm, as present as possible. So this is from the Maranasati Sutta. It says, a monk should reflect on the many possibilities which could bring death, and then turn his thoughts to the unskillful mental qualities he has yet to abandon. Just as when a person whose turban or head was on fire would put forth extra desire, effort, diligence, undivided mindfulness, and alertness to put out the fire on his turban or head, in the same way, the practitioner should put forth extra desire, effort, diligence, undivided mindfulness, and alertness for the abandoning of those unskillful qualities. So it means if we are aware death is always, just behind our shoulder, which it is, we will use our life to transform the unskillfulness in our minds and to cultivate the wholesome, which is available to each of us. In every moment, we can cultivate what's wholesome in us and abandon or transform, release the unwholesome. So it's also mindfulness of death as a central teaching in Tibetan Buddhism. And there's an 11th century Buddhist scholar named Atisha who created a whole contemplation on death in nine contemplations. And I'm going to share these with you. He is also said to have told his students that if a person is unaware of death, their meditation will have little power. Our practice can just become much more sharpened, much more powerful when we keep awareness of death front and center. So these are his 9 contemplations, the 9 death contemplations. The first one, so they're divided into 3 sets of 3. So the first set is the inevitability of death. Okay, and I'll put these in the chat so that you can follow them as I share. Showing up. Let me do it bit by bit. Okay, so the first set is the inevitability of death. And there's 3 points here. Let me put these in the chat for you. It doesn't seem to be showing up. I'm not sure why. All right, we'll send it out later with the recording. So the first contemplation is that death is inevitable. Everyone faces death. The second is that death will come whether or not we're prepared for it. And so our lifespan is continuously decreasing. We're always getting closer and closer to death, and it can come at any moment. The third contemplation in this first set of three is that the amount of time we have for spiritual practice is very small. If we think about all the things we do during the day, and so this sense of, let me really dedicate my time and energy to cultivating my mind. The second set of three is the uncertainty of the time of death. So the fourth contemplation is that human life expectancy is uncertain. We don't know how long we get to live. The fifth is that there are many causes of death. We can't always predict. We can't know in advance always how we're going to die. It could be, anything. And then the sixth in this contemplation is that the human body is fragile and vulnerable. So however we experience ourselves to be now, maybe we're strong, maybe we're young, maybe we're full of vitality, but that's not always going to be the case. So then the third set of three is that only spiritual practice can help us at the time of death. That's the overall category. And then the seventh contemplation there is that at the time of death, our material resources, our possessions, are not of use to us. They can't help us. The eighth is that our loved ones cannot keep us from death. As much as they love us, they can't stop that process. And the ninth is that our own body cannot help us at the time of death. So these are the 9 contemplations. And just to say that in all of the retreats with Thai, with Thich Nhat Hanh, the last talk he would give on a 5 or 6 or 7 day retreat would always be something connected to how to practice with death. It would be a talk on how to accompany loved ones who were dying. It would be possibly how to understand what death is. It would often be a talk about no coming, no going, the way that, our lifespan is an idea, a convention, but there's actually no birth, no death. There's just a continuation. So he would talk about that. So, one of the things he wanted us to capture when we were preparing material for teachers to learn mindfulness, we were creating Wake Up Schools, a program to educate teachers in mindfulness so that they could bring it to students. This is a wonderful program still going on very strongly. One of the things, I was one of the people who got that initiative started when I was a nun, and in the curriculum he wanted us to cover, he said, teachers should learn how to die well. We should learn how to live well so that we know how to die well. So much of our practice is unburdening the mind, is freeing the mind, so that we can live happily, of course, but also so that when we arrive at our moment of death, our mind won't be clouded, our mind won't be confused and anxious, and we can die with a calm and clear and peaceful mind, because that is a very important thing, to be able to pass into, whatever comes with clarity and stillness and peace. That has a very big influence on how we continue. So it's a very important a thing to study and to practice and to reflect on together. So I'm going to offer us a meditation now based on these 9 contemplations. And it is a guided meditation from a Tibetan Venerable Sangha Kadro. And we'll also make that available to you all. So finding a comfortable position. And letting your body be alert and also relaxed. You can begin by letting your mind settle down in the present moment, letting go of thoughts of the past or the future. And making the decision to keep your mind focused on this meditation topic for the duration of the practice. And of course, if at any time you feel overwhelmed or there's any strong emotion, come back to the breath, come back to the body sensations, and just offer kindness and attention and care to those experiences. And you can always stop the meditation if you don't feel it's beneficial for you, if it's somehow bringing up too much difficulty. You can practice walking meditation or moving mindfully or drinking tea. But we'll be here together supporting each other also. So as your mind begins to calm and settle in the present moment, generate a positive motivation for doing this meditation. It could be something like, may this meditation help bring about greater peace and happiness for myself and all beings. Or may this meditation be a support for me on my path of awakening, of understanding my mind, so that I can help all beings become free of suffering. So I'm going to cover the 9 points that I mentioned in this meditation. And as you contemplate them, bring to mind your own ideas and experiences, as well as stories you have heard or read that help you connect with the truth of each contemplation. Try to get a feeling, an embodied sense of each contemplation. If at any time during the meditation you experience a strong intuitive feeling of the point that we're examining, stop thinking and hold the feeling with concentration for as long as you can. When it fades or your mind gets distracted, return to the contemplation. So we begin by reflecting on the inevitability of death. We plan many activities and projects for the coming days, months, and years. Although death is the only event that is certain to occur, We don't usually think about it or plan for it. Even if the thought of death does arise in our mind, we usually push it away quickly. We don't want to think about death. But it's important to think about and be prepared for it. So we'll contemplate these first 3 points together to really open our awareness to accept that death is definitely going to happen to each of us. For the first contemplation, everyone has to die. To generate an experience of death's inevitability, bring to mind people from the past, famous rulers and writers, musicians, philosophers, saints, scientists, criminals, and ordinary people. These people were once alive. They worked, thought, and wrote. They loved and fought. They enjoyed life and suffered. And finally, they died. Can you think of anyone who was born on this earth but who did not die? No matter how wise, wealthy, powerful, or popular a person may be, his or her or their life must come to an end. The same is true for all other living creatures. For all the advances in science and medicine, no one has found a cure for death, and no one will. Now bring to mind people you know who have already died. And think of the people you know who are still alive. Contemplate that each of these people will one day die. And so will you. There are 7 billion plus people on the planet right now. But 100 years from now, all of these people, with the exception of a few who are now very young, will be gone. You yourself will be dead. Try to experience this fact with your entire being. The second contemplation is that your lifespan is decreasing continuously. Time never stands still. It's continuously passing. Seconds become minutes. Minutes become hours. Hours become days. Days become years. And as time passes in this way, You are traveling closer and closer towards death. Imagine an hourglass with the sand running into the bottom. The time you have to live is like these grains of sand, continuously running out. Hold your awareness for a while on the experience of this uninterrupted flow of time, carrying you to the end of your life. As you really get a sense of this, check what thoughts and feelings arise in your mind. The third contemplation is that the amount of time you have for spiritual practice is very small. Since you're getting closer and closer to death all the time, what are you doing to prepare for it? The best way to prepare for death is doing spiritual practice. This is because the only thing that continues after death is the mind. And spiritual practice is the only thing that truly benefits the mind, preparing it for death and the journey after that, into whatever continuation is there. But how much time do you actively devote to spiritual practice? Working on decreasing the negative, unwholesome aspects of the mind, like attachment, jealousy, and developing the wholesome, positive aspects of the mind, such as kindness and wisdom, and behaving in ways that are beneficial to others. Calculate how you spend your time. In an average day, how many hours do you sleep? How many hours do you work? How many hours do you spend preparing food, eating, and socializing? How much time do you spend feeling depressed, frustrated, bored, angry, resentful, jealous, or critical? And how much time do you spend consciously trying to improve your state of mind, or doing beneficial things such as helping others, or spiritual study or meditation? Do these calculations honestly. Assess your life in this practical way to see clearly just how much of your time is spent doing things that truly benefit yourself and others, and that will be helpful for your mind at the time of death and in the next life. By meditating on these first 3 contemplations, we develop the determination to use our life wisely and mindfully. So we'll take some deep breaths and feel the body as we bring our practice to a close. Oh, dear friends, because of the later start with the technical issue, we won't go through all the 9 steps, but we will make them available to you so you can practice them if you'd like. So, if you have some questions, you can put them, you can raise your hand. That's a good suggestion, Cecilia. I also see that Laura Delma would like to ask a question, and you could even turn on your video and ask live if you'd like, Laura, or you could put it in the chat. There is no space on Zoom to write in a Q&A in this call. And if you want to raise, oh, there's Lauren, great. Hi.
Hello.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. So, thank you for this nice teaching today and meditation. I asked a question yesterday that didn't get answered because of the technical issues, I guess. And it was related to civil disobedience. I was writing that I feel an urge these days to start actions of civil disobedience, and I'm wondering whether this is the right path or not. And my motivation for wanting to start actions of disobedience is that I see that our civil liberties are getting more and more restricted every week. And I don't see other ways to make it turn around than doing civil disobedience. But maybe there are other ways. So this is my question.
Thank you for your question, Noah. Would you mind to mute yourself, Laura? There's a bit of an echo. Thank you. So in the Plum Village tradition that I have been trained in, there's an understanding that part of practicing mindfulness means we pay attention to the injustices and the suffering around us, and that we speak out against injustice, even if it threatens our safety. That's one of the trainings in the 14 mindfulness trainings that Thich Nhat Hanh created. And I think it's very important to have a Sangha collective wisdom about what is the best way to address the difficulties, the injustices that are happening. If we act alone, we're very vulnerable. And anyway, civil disobedience isn't very effective when it's just one person or a few people. It really has much more power when it's a group of people. And then we also have the support and the energy, because we're connected to others who can support us. So it is important to call injustice into question. And I'm not sure what particular situation you're referring to with liberties being restricted. But I would say right now that's a bit complex, because there are, some important arguments for keeping distance and, keeping taking care of the larger whole. And so it can be restrictive, but it could be that restriction is coming out of the deep intention to protect and to support people to live safely. However, of course, I'm not sure what you're referring to, but the decision from governments or authorities to create restrictions can have other motivations as well that are not so wholesome. And so it's important to be discerning and understand as much as we can the complexity of the situation, so that our action, whatever it is the most effective and really brings about what we want. So often when we engage in certain resistance, the outcome isn't what we actually want. If we're not clear, and even when we are clear, even when everything is well thought out, we still may not have the outcome that we're hoping for. So it's important to have equanimity in whatever we do, and do what we need to do out of a sense of clarity, out of a sense of urgency, yes, but also accepting that, we can't control what's going to happen. Just as we've been practicing in this meditation on death, we can't control what's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to happen. We can't determine, I want it to be like this. So it's the same with our activism. We can engage, but then we need to be able to let go and listen and respond as things are arising, without a fixed idea like it's like this and this is the way to address it. We should take action if we can see with a group of others, yes, this can maybe bring about some change, but we need to not be rigid and holding on tightly to those ideas, because it's hard to know. There's so many different components that are creating the situation. And so we want to stay humble. There's a really great book. It's a small book. You can download it for free. on the internet, and it's called A Delicate Activism. A Delicate Activism. I can't remember the names of the two authors, but they're from South Africa, and they talk about doing activism in a self-reflective way without becoming dogmatic, which often happens in activism. We get overly identified with what we want to happen, and we lose our mindfulness, and then our work actually doesn't take us where we want to go. It doesn't liberate. It recreates structures that oppress. So yeah, please check out that, A Delicate Activism. Thank you for putting in the name to whom. A Radical Approach to Change by Allan, Kaplan, and Sue Davidoff. Thank you, Law, for your question. I'm sorry we couldn't get to it yesterday. My internet just evaporated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So are there other questions that came up in the chat that I haven't been able to stay attentive to? Maybe if someone can help me post a question or so. Oh, okay, I see a question from Merlin. Is that? I wonder about next life as it's just a belief. If it doesn't come from fear of death, to think that mind will survive can reassure us, yes. And how to explain that we were 1,000,000 years ago and now we're 1 billion 100 years ago and now we're 8 billion. Where do those 7 billion people come from? Thank you, and pardon my English, it's not my mother tongue. Thank you, Merlin, for this question. I smile because I had the same question, and I've asked teachers before, what is this with all these new people? If we reincarnate, if there's life after life, how come so many people are deciding to incarnate now in this time? So I appreciate that curiosity because I've had the same. And I can't remember, I asked Bhikkhu Bodhi the question, and I think he said something like, you know, it's kind of it's a question to ponder, that you know, how many, is it something countable that we can count how many beings are waiting to be reincarnated, or, you know, where did they all come from? How did they all manifest at the same time? I don't remember what he said, honestly, to my question. But I think the first part of your question about is the belief in reincarnation just something to reassure us so that we don't feel so badly about dying. You know, I'm not an expert on this at all. I don't know. I don't have any personal experience that we do get reincarnated. But I think it's not about believing in it or not. It's about how do we practice in our life now. One of the things Thich Nhat Hanh would say is, we're being reborn in every moment, you know? And it's not just that in a previous life, maybe we were a deer or a rock or a cloud. In this life, we are a deer, we're a rock, we're a cloud. We are interconnected, we are interbeing with everything already now. So it's not about what happens when we die, it's about what happens now when we live. So I think reorienting our attention to, it's not about whether you believe in reincarnation or not. I don't care what I don't care what anybody, it's not about believing or not believing. Like, it's not, that doesn't help us in our practice right now. It's like, what can help us to awaken and enliven our minds to see reality here and now. And that's what will be helpful for us at the time of our death and for whatever comes after that, if anything does. I mean, it's not up to me to convince anyone that there is reincarnation. To me, that's not helpful. It's just about living deeply this life, the moments we have now. Yeah. So I hope that's helpful, Merlin. I'm seeing a bunch of people saying that they would like to finish the 9 contemplations. So I'm happy to guide the rest of them tomorrow. Hopefully we will be able to start on time and we can get through all of them. It's good to see there's a lot of interest in this. Any other questions? Scanning through. Yes, David, would you like to come on screen? You can unmute yourself. I see you. Let's see. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well,
Nice
first
to
of
see
all,
you.
thank you so much. I get a lot from you, so much. I feel it. I'm sure everybody else does. I'm a little bit self-conscious about being on the screen, but on the contemplation with regard to death, I think that I'm pretty okay with it. I feel that I've come to terms with my mortality, and I enjoyed the contemplation, and I would like to hear the rest of it. But the flip side of it is I want to be reflecting life, and I wondered, the question is that it felt quite like we should carry this, the death contemplation with us all the time, so that we should see the flip side. But I wondered if you could explain that a little bit clearer for me, please.
So how can we be aware of death constantly so that we can appreciate life?
No, how could we actually celebrate life or reflect celebration of life? I think I do. I think that that's what I aspire to. I try to do. You do it so well. You're very much alive and vibrant, and yet this contemplation sits somewhere, and I think that the reflection should be that we should actually celebrate it, celebrate it. But on the other hand, I don't think anybody really wants to look forward to it or look forward at all. I want to be present in the moment now.
Sure.
And I wondered what reflections you had on that.
Sure, got it. Thank you. Thank you for the question. I really think it's about paying attention to the small things in our daily life. That's what brings us alive. It's really being there for the different moments of our life, and noticing the ways that we tend to check out or take for granted the small moments. Because if we can bring in little moments of pausing This is just a, stopping where we breathe, where we feel our body, where we connect with the beauty around us, where we really look into someone else's eyes or hear the tone of their voice, where we really tune in and bring ourselves fully alive. But that requires some releasing of other things in order to be really there with what's happening in the present. We have to let go of all the things that pull us out of the present, right? Our worries, our plans, our this sense of stress of having to get this done and that done. So there needs to be the ability to stop, to pause, to really come into ourselves, this sense of leaning back and feeling, oh, I'm here. I'm not there. I'm right here, right? And that's what allows us to then appreciate the things that are wonderful and unique and unrepeatable, like that bird song that will never come again in that same way, or the way the sun is coming through the leaves. That's a special gift for today. So I think we can orient towards celebrating life by paying attention, right?
I get that.
It's said that attention is one of the most basic forms of love. So we attend to the things that are, that's what brings us alive and brings us to experience the fullness of life.
And I have one other question on thinking.
Can we ask it tomorrow, David? Because
yes, sure.
We're already over time.
Of course.
But I'm happy to answer. Yes,
okay.
Thank you for the question. Very important.
Well, thank you for the response. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you, everyone, for your being here and for this exploration today. And I look forward to continuing with you tomorrow. And I believe Caroline has put the Dana link in the chat, and you can find it there. So thank you for your courage to do this practice today, and we'll go deeper tomorrow. Be well, everyone.